excited to talk to you today. My name is John Hilliard. I'm a senior engineer in the Boston office, and I've actually worked for NextJump 8 years as of today. And today I'm going to take you through some of what we've really built from a technical standpoint in order to support the culture that's so unique to NextJump. So you'll hear me talk a lot, and I think during the culture tours you probably heard this term OS for culture. OS for culture is the way that we're talking about productizing our culture, the thing that makes our culture. Oh, now I can see you all, a lot of you. Hello. So anyway, it's HR software that's built for the enterprise in order to run better companies, really to help companies run better. You can see from the right, there's a whole suite of engagement apps, and it's really integral to our culture and our DNA. For years, we've experimented with developing different types of technologies in order to do a better job running our company in a lot of different areas. For example, recruiting. We don't have a dedicated HR team or recruiting team that does recruiting. It's really everybody's involved. I work with recruiting, like we all do it. And part of the way that we bridge that gap is through technology. We have multiple mobile apps that help us screen candidates. We have different technology that accepts resumes, that helps us rank candidates based on the inputs that they provide, all different types of apps in that realm. We have lots of apps around development, apps to support talking partners, apps to support running situational workshops. Pretty much every component that you've probably heard about on the culture tour, there's some form of app or some technology behind it that enables us to not only execute on that, but run it in a way that doesn't require a ton of overhead or management. There's apps around health. We have a fitness competition app. We've had apps around giving back, apps to help other people, practice gratitude, and we have apps around recognition. So I'm going to cover some of those. For context, a lot of these apps have developed organically over time. For example, we have annual holiday party, and during that holiday party, there's a dance competition. We have an app that allows us to vote for the team that does the best dance. Like, there's all kinds of apps, and those things like spring up all over the place. And a lot of times, they're not necessarily documented. The apps aren't ready for like consumption by other companies yet, because we've just made them in-house. The culture for OS, though, is an effort to really productize a lot of these apps and make them available for other companies, other organizations that would like to use them. And so we're beginning to standardize a lot of these apps. So this is the only somewhat technical slide that I'll cover. I wanted to give a little context for how apps sort of fit into our overall business and how we look at it. So at the top, there's a platform, which is OS for Culture, and there's two main products underneath that. Perks at Work, which is our shopping and discount platform, and then on the right, there's Culture Apps, which is what I'm going to be talking about. Both of those products leverage a lot of similar components. For example, employee data. A Culture app isn't very useful unless you have employee data in it. For example, if I want to be able to recognize another employee, it would be nice to be able to see their picture, have their name, not necessarily have to be able to type it in or use it like email. Discounts are really integral for Perks at Work. WOW Points, which is our virtual currency, is actually leveraged in quite a few of our mobile apps or culture apps, and OneCart for shopping. There's multiple channels that are also leveraged in culture apps. Being able to email when you get a recognition, or being able to view that recognition app on mobile and desktop is very helpful. And at the very bottom, we have something called APIs, which allow us to integrate with third-party services like Twitter or Facebook, or in a case of business, being able to pull in all of the email addresses from Microsoft Outlook or something like that. So we have all kinds of data going on, and we leverage a lot of different components, both internally and externally through APIs in order to build these apps. So instead of talking about every single app we've ever built, I'm going to talk briefly on these 4 apps, assuming that we don't run out of time. Rather than demo, I'm just going to talk through some of them and just give you guys a high-level overview and try to leave some time for questions if you guys have any. So the first app, we have app on recognition, which I'll cover, called Top 10. I'll talk a little bit about the feedback app, which hopefully you guys have had access to. If you run into any problems with the app, feel free to email me or reach out. I've helped build that app. I'll talk on our recruiting app, and also the way that we do performance evals using mobile apps as well. So the first thing I'll talk about is the feedback app, which hopefully you're slightly familiar with. But the app is probably the app within NextJump that gets used the most. Every week we have some kind of event where someone presents, and we use this app in order to give feedback directly to that person. That was really the basic premise for how it started. I can rate anybody on a scale of 1 to 4, and that feedback is viewable and actionable in real time. One of the ways that this has sort of transformed the way that we're able to run, originally it was really about getting feedback on presentations. But for example, we run, in our leadership team, MV21, we run a leadership meeting called the Owners Meeting. And after that meeting, everyone gives everyone else feedback on what they contributed to that meeting, if they met expectations or not. And it's sort of uncanny how during that, when you look at all the feedback, everyone almost says the same thing. It's almost like everybody, all the feedback was written by the same person. So being able to see feedback in real time about your performance is a really helpful data point for growth. And that's one of the ways that this app has gone from being just speaking presentation feedback to really integral to our own growth. Sort of playing off what Tom talked about on innovation and moving quickly, I wanted to talk a little bit about the feedback app in particular and give a window into how these apps get developed. Many years ago, we used to run a program called Throwdowns. We still run them. They've changed a lot. And the way that we used to collect feedback back then was after the event was done, we would email everybody in the company and say, please email back your feedback, please. And like that was always a really difficult effort to get anyone to send feedback. After we moved past that, we moved to the vision on the right, where it was sort of, what's that, Dan, the show where people sing? American Idol. We moved to that sort of style of voting where you would SMS, you would like text 7 to this number if you want to vote for John or something like that. And we had systems that leveraged that. Most recently, we've moved to the mobile app because the SMS voting was from a time when people didn't actually have smartphones for the most part. But now everybody in the company pretty much has smartphones, and we have an integrated experience where you can vote, see the feedback in real time, write full comments, and all of that. And it's actually evolved to the point where people who aren't in NextJump can use the app. So that's how you guys have access to it today. And we're continuing to invest in this app over time. So the next app I'll talk about is Top 10. This is our recognition app. There are a few recognition apps, but this is the most important one, I think, within NextJump. There's a few, the way it works at a high level, every employee in the company is given $10 a month in WOW points. WOW points is that virtual currency that runs through our Perks at Work platform. And throughout the month, you can give those $10 worth of WOW points, it's 1,000 WOW points, to anybody as a form of recognition. So, for example, if Sam helps me out with a project, I can thank him by going into this app and selecting Sam, giving him maybe like 200 WOW points or something like that, and saying, thank you so much for helping me with the SSO work that you did this week, or something like that. That recognition is publicly available then. Everybody can see that I voted for Sam, and at the end of the month, there's a leaderboard, which you can see on the far right, of who's received the most votes in that week, in that month, sorry. So a little bit of more detail on this app. The important, I think, data point actually comes from the origin of Top 10. And kind of some of the, Rachel will go into more detail on recognition on the whole, but the Top 10 app in itself is very important in terms of like how we think about recognition. Before this version of Top 10, we used to have a evaluation system. And so here are some of the insights. One was it was really important to switch to a system that was peer evaluated. We had a lot of recognitions that were management driven. So the management team would pick somebody and they would get a recognition. That breeded more like resentment as opposed to like feeling good about the fact that somebody got an award. In the old system as well, it didn't reinforce like why you would vote for somebody. You could vote for anybody just because Sam did a really good job, or Rachel did a really good job closing this contract, and that's why you would vote for them. What we've done now is in the app itself, I don't know if it says it in there, but it's all about who helped you succeed. So it's like the app itself is built to recognize people who help other people, as opposed to just saying, this guy did a really good job, even though he trampled everybody else in his way, he got a ton of sales, so let me recognize him. It's about recognizing people who helped you succeed. And so that's one of the major insights in terms of the way that we run recognition, is that the recognition programs themselves should be built in a way that not only recognizes performance, but recognizes the culture that you ultimately want to create. We wanted to create a culture of service and helping others, creating a helpful environment. So the Top 10 app was really built to reinforce that. And in this particular case, the app is not really separable. It's like the app is really integral to our culture because it reinforces that at a technical level, but also in terms of how we interact with each other. So moving along, I want to talk about the recruiting app briefly. So for context, we run Super Saturdays where we bring in sometimes up to 50 candidates, interview them all at once in a single day of interviews. Over years ago, when we used to do this, we would have paper forms that we would use to, interview people. So if I interview somebody, I'd be like, thumbs up, and then I would submit this piece of paper that would then go into a tracking spreadsheet. About 3 years ago, we built this mobile app, and it really changed the way that we were able to run these Super Saturday hiring events. Every candidate is now in the app, and throughout the whole day, not only can I do the interview, so if I interview a particular person, I can put my feedback in the app, but at any point during the day, if I interact with a person in there, Monica, if she's very rude to me or something, I can give her a thumbs down in the app, even if it's just in the elevator on the way up. What we saw is that...
Let's see what this looks like.
Let's see if I can remember So this is not the mobile view, obviously, as well, but let me see if I can find the app. We don't use it that often, like twice a year. So you can see how I rated myself last time, 2 on revenue and 1 on culture. Like that was my honest assessment of what I thought I needed, or where I thought I was. And then over time, I can see my own history. So there's 2 bars here. One line is like my self-evaluation. That's like the dots, and the bars are my manager evaluations across both dimensions, revenue and culture. So I can see over time where I've trended up. I feel like it seems like I do pretty well in Q4s. The rest of the year, it seems like harder for me on the revenue side. It's like definitely a trend. During the holiday season, I contribute more to revenue. But during culture, it's more cyclical as well. But this is helpful in terms of like evaluating my contribution and where I'm off. But I can go through here too, you can see all these things. These are the peer feedback I received around my own contributions. For this, I think, when we did this in January. Yeah. So we did this like a few months ago. Any other questions?
Okay. Well, thank you guys.